Welcome to episode 416 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. And this week's a great one because Mitchell Gilliam of Blind Oath is on this podcast. Mitchell is a guy that I've talked to about being on this podcast many times over the course of the past decade. I know that sounds like a little much or like a embellishment, but it's not. This podcast will hit 10 years in May. And I know at least 2 or 3 times I'm like, hey, let's make this happen over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And of course, just shit comes up and it doesn't happen. But the point is, it's happening. It's happened right now. You're about to hear what happened when Mitchell finally got onto the podcast. So glad to finally make this happen. 2 Minutes to Tulsa is an event that is happening this weekend in Tulsa. Mitchell had a big hand in the beginnings of this. Horton Records puts this thing on. Blind Oath will be playing this for the 3rd time this year. Going to talk about all that coming up with Mitch, but first I'm going to let you know who sponsors this podcast. Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed. They've got well over 25 years of experience. Native American owned, and there is a female artist on staff full time. Give them a call or shoot them a message to set up a time for a consultation. Talk about what work you're looking to have done. If you've got an idea ready to go, of course, they can help you out with that. If you need an idea or if you need help putting your idea together, they're great at that as well. If you hit up their socials, Sunset Tattoo Tulsa on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, they've got tons of photos on there. All their work throughout the years, specializing in all different styles. I've had work done by Jake at Sunset Tattoo more than once. I'm very happy with it. I know many other people that have had work done by Jake and Sunset Tattoo and are happy with it. Many of your favorite bands, especially if you're into heavy metal. There's probably a member of that band that's been tattooed by Jake at some point. He, of course, has been doing this for many years, going back throughout the decades tattooing. So hit up Sunset Tattoo and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. We've also got DEB Concerts, concert promoter based right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They've brought tons of great acts to the downtown Tulsa area at both the club level and the arena level at the BOK Center. And they've also booked the Roadhouse stage at Rocklahoma the last several years. This year is no exception. That stage, the DEB concert stage, the 3rd stage at Rocklahoma, always features the pre-party. DEB Concerts books the pre-party for the 3-day event holders. You can go out there, get a 4th day of fun. This year it'll be headlined by Dee Snider. Dee Snider, of course, was the vocalist of Twisted Sister. His solo work is heavier than Twisted Sister. His recent solo work is excellent. He's been on this podcast before. That day will also feature Trickster. A couple members of that band have been on this podcast. It will also feature another legend of the 80s that has not been announced yet, but if you look at the flyer, you should be able to figure it out. Other days on the DEB concert stage will feature longtime friends of this podcast, Dime Store Riot, who have been on here a few times. They're members throughout the years. Fist of Rage, their members have been on this podcast multiple times. Van Halen is a Van Halen tribute. We've also got Mike Tramp of White Lion. He's been on this podcast. Orianthi, amazing guitarist who has never been on this podcast and I've never seen live, so looking forward to getting a chance to check her out live. There'll be lots of other acts on that stage and of course tons of other acts on Rocklahoma on all the other stages as well, so hit up rocklahoma.com to see who's going to be there. People like Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden. Did you ever think you'd get to see Bruce Dickinson solo? Probably not, so this is a good time to do that. rocklahoma.com, debconcerts.com. Follow DEB Concerts on the socials. They're on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. And finally, we've got Rocklahoma Bitches, our newest sponsor who hopped on board this past month. If you've been to Rocklahoma, I'm sure you're familiar with Rocklahoma Bitches, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about them real quick. If you've been in the campgrounds or the VIP area of Rocklahoma, you've surely seen these ladies. They've got tons of swag, t-shirts, koozies, stickers, necklaces, bags, nipple stickers, all kinds of great stuff. And guess what? They give you all of this for free. They never charge for a single thing. They are nice people like that. They also give to nonprofits. They bid on the Rocklahoma auctions every year. They have auctions for guitars that are autographed. They bid and win those every year. They support nonprofit organizations. They also sponsor the Cancer Sucks event benefit that happens every year in Tulsa, late November, early December every year. They've been a sponsor of that as well. So hit up Rocklahoma Bitches on Facebook. You follow them. They've got a Facebook group, Rocklahoma Bitches in all caps. They've also got a page called Rock Bitch. Give them a follow. Tell them you heard about them right here. All right, so let's just jump into this. 2 minutes to Tulsa. We're going to talk about this here coming up in this interview with Mitch, so there's no reason to, go into great length here, but of course I'm going to give you a quick rundown. This is the third year of the event. It's happened in Tulsa all 3 years. It's something, me and Mitch will talk about coming up, but it's still kind of course there's events like this all over the world, but just to think that an event that is very specific like this on the genres of metal that it brings in, it's just still crazy to me to wrap my head around the fact that this happened in Tulsa. But of course, when you've got guys like Mitchell, you've got guys like Brian Horton, you've got guys in this scene that love this music and want to see it celebrated, want to see the newer acts grow, and they're going to do it, of course, where they're located, and thankfully for us, they're located right here. If you're coming in from out of town, we appreciate you coming into this town as well. Hey, I travel for concerts all the time, so it's always great to hear when people are coming into Tulsa for it, and I know that both years they've talked about post-show that they've had tickets sold in several different countries, the majority of all the states. So just the fact that people are not coming in just from Mexico and Canada, but from Europe. They're coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma for a 2-day festival. And we're not talking Lollapalooza or Download here or Vakken. We're talking a 2-day festival at the club level. So that's what makes this even more impressive, that you've got fans coming from all over the world. And I think that says a lot about what Horton has done as far as crafting these lineups and the bands they've been able to get on these shows every year. And speaking of that, let's, do a quick rundown here. We've got 2 days, this Friday and Saturday, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you're listening to this the day that it drops later this week, Friday the 29th and Saturday the 30th, in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Vanguard, we've got 2 minutes to Tulsa. Friday night will be headlined by Liege Lord, Sacred Right. Don't say that too fast and confuse people. It's not Sacred Reich. Sacred Right, Savage Master, Sentry, Tower Hill, Void, and the guest of honor right now, Blind Oath. Saturday at the Vanguard will be headlined by Lizzie Borden. It will also feature Hellstar, Midnight, such a great band, Haunt, excellent band. Haunt is a band that I will champion and have championed many times throughout the last few years. Jason, who used to do this podcast with me, latched onto them really quick and said, you got to check these guys out. And then we ended up getting Trevor from Haunt on this podcast a couple different times. Sure, we'll have him back again at some point, but Haunt's got tons of great music out there you need to check out if you're not familiar with it. Mega Colossus, Las Cruces, Hitten's another band that kind of, I guess, jumped onto this, the scene in the past year or two. I don't know, but going back to Jason again, Jason once again found this band about a year ago and sent it over to me and said, you got to check these guys out. So really excited to see that they were on the lineup. And Saturday will also feature Medicine Horse, a great band out of the Tulsa area. Kyle Williams is the rhythm guitarist of Medicine Horse, and he's been on this podcast before. But when I say been on this podcast before, it would go back to the very first year, 2015. There was an episode, here's a random tangent for you. There was an episode that we did early on. I believe it was late 20s. The episode number, not the date. That wouldn't have made sense anyway, because we're in the mid-20s, right? But probably 25 to 30 in the episode count. We did an episode at DTL, which, I mentioned just a little while ago. Jake Thompson, who owned Sunset Tattoo, he also owned DTL, which if you're from the Tulsa area, especially part of the rock scene, surely you remember DTL. Before that, Dead Town, the bar that was at the corner there, across from the Tulsa Theater, and all that great stuff downtown. But, used to frequent the place a lot to do interviews and even, before that, just hanging out. Absolutely loved that place. Sad that it's gone. But the point is, Kyle Williams' band's Forever in Disgust, if I could speak right, and Smoke Offering, we did a joint podcast with all the members combined. That was like 8 or 9 people in this podcast, including plus me and Jason, so like 11. I mentioned it back then, and because if I'm remembering correctly, about a decade ago, I reached out to Kyle about being on the podcast, and he said he would rather do it as a full band, and so then that's kind of when we had the idea to just do both full bands. But I've always wanted to reach out to Kyle about coming back, on his own. The guy's had tons of great music throughout the years. He's a great live presence on the vocals and, of course, on the guitar with Medicine Horse. All that saying to say, check out Medicine Horse if you haven't. They've got music online. Awesome band. So the VanguardTulsa.com is where you can get tickets ahead of time. You might be able to buy them at the door, but chances are this I would think would sell out. I don't know for sure, but buy the tickets ahead of time just to be safe. 2 Minutes to Tulsa, Friday, March 29th, Saturday, March 30th, at the Vanguard in Tulsa, featuring Mitchell Gilliam of Blind Oath. So, one final quick note before we jump into this episode, or into this interview. Just recorded an episode with Brian Fair, the lead vocalist of Shadows Fall. He will be returning to this podcast in the next week or two. Recorded this one the same day that I recorded this episode with Mitchell Gilliam, so that was pretty cool. Also did the same day with Phil X, the guitarist of Bon Jovi. That episode already came out last week, so check that out if you're inclined as well. But just wanted to throw that in there. Shadows Fall has a lot of thrash elements to them. So if you're like a diehard old school metal fan and you never checked them out, or if you're an extremely new metal fan and they kind of fit in that middle area between the classic area and the new stuff, there's a band you should check out, Shadows Fall. All right, back to the subject at hand. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Here is Mitchell Gilliam of Blind Oath.
Out on the road, we did just like a little Texas run in early January.
Right.
And then immediately we came home and it was beautiful down there, and we came home and everything was frozen. So a southern trip did exactly what we hoped.
Yeah, man, the guitar intro on that song's killer. Among many other things, but
oh man, thank you. That song, I really appreciate that. That song's kind of like my personal Bohemian Rhapsody. I was the psycho that came up with the idea to rope in, 4 vocalists in different states, and just it was a really daunting thing. And then finally, we were about to have the comic book ready. It's an 8-page comic book.
Oh wow!
So we wanted one physical artifact, if we put all this time into the digital single. So we were like, let's do a comic book. Like, we're not going to do a 7-inch or single song cassette, which could be kind of sick, honestly.
Right.
Might do a cassette version down the road, something limited. But yeah, so we'll have the comic book. We were hoping to have it by 2 Minutes to Tulsa, but we are down to the finish line, if that's going to be a thing.
Okay. Kind of, mentioned it was your idea, but like, where did that come from to you to think? Not just get like one guest female vocalist, let's go really ambitious and get 4. Like, where did this idea for you come from?
There's a really good friend of ours, Kit Eichmann, and I'm sure that a lot of your listeners would actually know Kit. He's He's always Rocky, Night Demon's mascot on
Yeah.
stage. Um, Kit's up there. And for your Tulsa listeners, Kit is kind of like old school heavy metal's Evan Hughes. Like
Mm.
he's just the most positive dude. He's everywhere all at once, just the biggest supporter. And Kit had flown into Tulsa for a Death Angel show. He's from Mobile, Alabama. And he flew in and got a blind oath tattoo, which was super sick.
Yeah.
Me and the singer of our band, Eric Miller, we both have blind oath tattoos. I know you're not recording, but I have mine on my hand. Miller has one, and so Kit's the first of other people to take the blind oath and get a tattoo. While he was here in town, Brian Horton, that has Horton Records, puts on 2 Minutes to Tulsa, puts out our music, just had a cookout over at his place, and Kit was like, "It is so awesome! You got Tim Baker from Sierra Thungle on your album." He's like, "You should always do like a cool collab on every album." It's like I have this idea where we do a song where Miller is playing the role of a witch finder, but he realizes the witch is hunting him. I was like, I already asked Maddie from Bloodstar. He's like, yeah, you got to ask Deb from Lady Beast. It's like, oh, I've never actually met Deb. And he's like, that's insane. You got to meet Deb. I was like, cool. And I start talking about something else. And then Kit's like, cool, Deb's in. She's down to do the song. And I was like, what? He asked her for me. And so, but I went on to meet Deb, and she's just one of the most positive, incredible people in heavy metal. They took a year off this year, but they do the Metal Immortal Festival in Pittsburgh. She's just a huge supporter of the scene, and really, Lady Beast were kind of early adopters along with Savage Master of the new wave of true heavy metal, and definitely some of the first women to be doing it. So then it just started going. I was just like, well, we have two singers, and it's just like, and I like a nice, like an odd number. I was just like, okay, so who else? And I was like, Stacy Savage for sure. And then it was like, oh man, you got to ask Amy from Solicitor too. And I was like, okay, yeah, Amy's a homie as well. And it kind of ballooned and went from there. And everybody, uh, it just came together perfect. Uh, Armo from Night Demon, their guitarist, he records all of our music. And so to keep up with that quality, we flew him in from Ventura, and we used this old church in West Tulsa, Park Grove Community Center, and we recorded all of Blind Oath's parts there. And then it was on to project directing, and it really did project directing. I'm sorry, man, you picked a podcast to do. Like I love to yap, so I was just
Oh
going to
yeah.
keep
Hey.
talking.
That's the
I am the
point.
CEO of yapping,
Yeah.
and but it was really once I had Deb and Maddie, I was like, "You guys mind if I tell Stacy Savage that you guys are signed on to this?" They're like, "Absolutely." I was like, Stacy, do you mind if I use your name and tell Amy from Solicitor? And so it's just like building credibility. And it
Yeah.
all really started at that cookout with like Kit just being like, oh, that's so sick. You should get Dev from Lady Beast. And then it just, some singer. Then four. And so, but it's taken forever. I mean, we recorded this thing in like embarrassingly long ago. Our tracks, like, I want to say like December of 23.
Okay.
So
Well, how
it's
long was the
taken,
actual recording process drawn out since you were bringing in all
um,
these different vocalists and
for Blind Oath, it was 2 days in the church.
okay.
We did all the instruments the first day, and then I had to do all the lyrics the next day, all of Miller's vocals and stuff. So just basically like a day and a quarter, I think. And then all the ladies, they all got their stuff in really quick. Amy from Solicitor, she is going to be a vendor again in Tulsa this year. 2 Minutes to Tulsa. She's Babe Hammer 40K or Babe Finder General, and she just does excellent leather working and stuff like that.
Okay.
Excellent leather studs, gauntlets. Just a killer in the field, and she travels everywhere. She'll be in like Germany, Greece. She'll be at Hell's Heroes in Houston next week or this week, I guess. And
Yeah.
so Amy, she vended at 2 Minutes to Tulsa, and then she's stayed with me and my girlfriend for a couple days after because she was working on some leather working stuff with Russ that owns the Gate record store in Wichita. And so we just recorded her vocals while she was in town.
Okay.
And then Bloodstar, Jameson, their guitarist in Salt Lake City, he has his own studio, so he did Maddie's vocals. Stacy Savage, she had Um, Adam Neal is her. I don't know if they're married yet. If they're not married, they're at least engaged. But Adam is the guitar. Well, shit, I don't know if Adam's guitar or bass in Savage Master, so maybe edit that one out. I'm sorry, Adam. I love you, homie. They're always wearing hoods. They're always wearing hoods. I don't take
Yeah.
stock of it. But he recorded Stacy's part, and everybody was just super gung ho, and they wanted to make it happen. So, and we've had a great response to it so far. I think it's up to like 4,000 watches on the YouTube channel, and then it's doing good on streaming. And we want to do another, maybe a maybe like a little bit of a PR push whenever we finally have the comic and we're ready to put out previews.
When you were, kind of putting this all together before you, I assume, sent him the lyrics, like, how did you decide, like, who was going where? Because it's not like a normal situation where you could just try out things in the studio. So you probably had to send them their
Yeah,
exact stuff predetermined.
totally. And there's somewhere out there, I want to find a jump or just make an edit that only the ladies can hear, the people that help record. It should never be leaked.
Yeah.
But I had to record their vocals. Like I wrote all the lyrics and the vocal patterns. And so I had to record my own versions of it and send it to
Okay.
them for scratch vocals. And they are like, I mean, it sounds like Disney's Goofy, but like tweaking on amphetamines, like like God's red with the firelight. Like it's embarrassingly bad.
Hey, 20
But that kind
years
of
from now on the lost tapes of Blind Oath, you can release that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, totally. But it kind of fell into place naturally by how their voices sound. Maddie, I always wanted Maddie for the first big chorus, and it's all the girls at the end harmonized. But Maddie's doing the chorus just because I love how her voice sounds in Bloodstar. It's kind of like this biblically booming, just this really important, commanding like force of a voice. And they all are incredible in their own ways. And Stacy, she has this under the light of the moon. She always has this more venomous kind of tone to her voice, like our singer. You know, we're old school traditional heavy metal, but our singer kind of has this like Kronos from Venom sort of black metally, kind of raspy, like Lemmy with a little bit more toxicity in it, you know. And so I just thought in the beginning they're doing this back and forth, and so I thought their voices would match each other very well. And then it's actually more of an esoteric thing with Deb from Lady Beast and then Amy from Solicitor. Deb is a witch. She's a practicing witch, and very much about. I don't know exactly what she would call her discipline. I don't want to say that she's Wiccan, but definitely understands the ideas of like the Earth goddess and stuff like that that a lot of paganism draws from. And so she is detailing in the song the goddess red with the fire of life, the earth and the world creatrix, and it's kind of like this the life aspect of the goddess. And then Amy from Solicitor comes in and she's detailing the death, fire aspect of everything. So that's kind of how I pick them. Because Deb is an earth goddess. You know, everybody that knows her, like she is very mother. She works the earth out on her like farm and stuff in Pittsburgh. She does lots of magic that she finds with natural specimens and stuff like bones and plants and everything that she forages for. So she very much is an earth goddess. And Amy from Solicitor is just like the baddest bitch in the game. I mean, she, if she ever decided to be a pro wrestler, she'd be a legend. You know,
Yeah.
if you've never seen her, look up Amy from Solicitor. She's just, I mean, a living icon. Like nobody looks like Amy or commands a stage like her. It's super badass and terrifying.
Well, you mentioned the comic book and the video for the song has the comic book vibe. Is that like the same artist or like how was
It
that?
is.
Okay.
It's Derek Hefner, and he's done lots of work. He's Tulsa based. He drums in Plastic Psalms, which are a really good, really intense kind of post punk band. Uh, and so Plastic Psalms is awesome. He's a good buddy, and so all the portraits of the girls in that, and then of Miller in the lyric video, those are assets that we used from him that will be in the comic book.
So is the comic book designed around like the story of the lyrics of the
Yep.
song? Okay.
Yep. It's our singer. He's a you know, I'm on the trail of the witch. You
Yeah.
know, he's a witch finder. He's setting out to find a witch, and he just realizes one by one that he is the one being hunted. and it's called Righteous Hunt, and it's spelled like right, like sacred right, and which Horton could never really wrap his head around. I had 3 emails from him. They're always just like, just need to confirm this isn't a typo, and I'm like, no, it's like right, like a sacred right, but he's being hunted in a right. It's Righteous Hunt. It's a play on words, and he's like, isn't it spelled righteous? Like the RIGH, like, yeah, but I told our drummer, it's like, dude, Horton hates the song title. And then finally, the day before, because he uploaded all of everything for us, like the art and the audio, to all streaming platforms. So Horton Records did that for us. But it was up until like the day before, and he's like, just confirming one more time, this isn't a typo. And I'm just like, damn it, dude, why do you hate this so much? But we've laughed about it. He doesn't hate it.
Speaking on the album, it's been out 2 years now. Actually, I just saw it was
Yeah.
2 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Is this song leading towards another release, like an EP or another album, or what's the plans?
We're considering that. We originally thought, because we're writing our second LP, and we're trying to decide. There's a couple ways we could go. We could do an A side of an LP that would be a concept album. And we're starting to get into our very, with Righteous Hunt, you could tell that we're really getting into our storytelling, like our King Diamond sort
Yeah.
of mode. Merciful Fate's my favorite heavy metal band in history, and
Okay.
King Diamond I just love. Like Merciful Fate and King Diamond musically, every song's a meal. They cram so many themes, riffs, tempo, time changes into every song, but you'd never accuse it of being tech or prog. It just rocks that hard. That's what we try to go for. Now we're leaning into the storytelling. So we've kicked around an idea of doing an A side that is just one huge piece of music that flows in and out of each other. And it will either be about the life of English occultist John Dee, or it'll be about the video game Bloodborne, and we haven't decided yet. And then we were thinking of doing that and making the B side a collection of singles we were going to do. And I had wanted to do a single comic book pairing 3 times, but now it's the amount of work that goes into it's pretty formidable.
Yeah.
So we might scrap. This might be a one-off comic book thing. So either that, or we just say screw it and we just do a second follow-up album. But we're chomping at the bit, writing a lot of stuff, and it's been 2 years, so we want to get more music out there. So Righteous Hunt is kind of like, hey, we're still here and we're still kicking ass, and hopefully you think we're kicking more ass than.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Brian Horton a few times and Horton Records. Gonna talk about 2 Minutes to Tulsa and his involvement into that, but like, talk about like how you guys started working together. I know you've probably, been friends or acquaintances long before,
Yeah,
Blind Oath, but like, so how did this come together with Blind Oath being a part of Horton Records?
man, I've known Horton. I used to be in like a noisy kind of pop punky, but we were too metal for the emo dudes, and we were too emo for the metal guys. We were in this band Lizard Police, and that's really how I cut my teeth. And Nick Flores, the owner of Whittier Bar, where we host most of the metal shows that come through Tulsa, at least in that tier. He was the drummer of Lizard Police. We toured all throughout our 20s, and he saw how bands were treated in other cities. So he's brought that to Whittier Bar. So me and him were in Lizard Police, and Horton released several of our records back in the day. I
Okay.
originally met Horton because he was out back at Yeti, which at the time it was Crystal Pistol, and he was either wearing a Voivod or an Immortal shirt. And so I immediately struck up a combo with him, and so we were just friends from then on, like seeing uh, this cool metal dude out at shows. And then I found out, I was like, wait, you put out all this roots and like folk and Americana kind of music, and he just loves everything, but he's super metalhead. And so whenever we came out with the Blind Oath demo way back in the day, I sent him the rough tracks, and he's like, dude, what are you going to do with this? And it was like he is such a metalhead, kind of above all else, honestly. And I think he would even say that. But he had never really had the right kind of metal band to really get involved with in Tulsa. And he's done stuff with Dust Lord and Medicine Horse now, and he's just a
Yeah.
huge benefactor to all music, even if it's not heavy. And so, but with Blind Oath, he really, he worships at the altar of like Maiden and Priest and a lot of the stuff that we do. We're old school traditional heavy metal with a black metal singer, and we thrash a lot. So it's hard to describe us, but he was really into it. And like even his longtime buddies are like, he's always loved putting out music, but whenever you guys started doing this, he just got so excited. And I think with kind of the interest that our album was generating and stuff, and he saw that we were really serious about it, he finally like got it in his head, and he's just like, dude, we need to do a metal fest. And this is year 3. And it looks to be the best one yet.
Yeah.
Horton's a great, great friend and a great supporter of the arts.
Yeah.
And Horton Records is a nonprofit. I don't know if enough people like really know that. And so, he paid for a chunk of our recording of the LP. And like I said, he will upload all of our music onto all streaming platforms and stuff, which is just a tremendous help for any artist. And he will completely press. Well, maybe I don't need to say this because I don't know if he does it for every band. So never mind. Horton's really nice.
This is something specifically that generally is not a nonprofit business. Is he just, do they constantly raising money, like, or is it kind of your job as Blind
Yeah.
Oath to help raise money for your production, or?
Yeah, totally. And there's a board. Everything has to be approved by a board.
Yeah.
And I really don't know how they do it, but they do. And they work with pretty big stuff. I know that they do the rock and folk and chili cook-off every year, which I think is a big fundraiser for them. But no, I have no clue how they stay afloat, but they do it and they're good at it.
Yeah, I need to ask. I asked him a few years ago. He put out, I forgot what the name of it was. It was a compilation of Tulsa artists
Oh
along the
yeah.
hard rock and rock line.
Yeah, Vibrations from Tulsa or
Yeah. And I'd
yeah.
ask him to come on the podcast, and he just kind of said, nah. He just
Yeah.
said, you just kind of pushed the bands that were on it. I'm like, well, that's cool. I can contact them, but I was just kind of wanting
Yeah.
his background info and stuff. But, maybe
He
one
might
of
be
these
more
days.
receptive to it now.
Yeah.
Because he's hosting the Horton's Heavy Communion on RSU Radio.
Okay.
I was briefly doing the metal meltdown with Bad Mitch after Turbo had left,
Oh, that's
and
right.
it was just too much of a what's that?
Oh, no, I said, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
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 So I briefly hosted it, but it was just kind of too much for me, and to stay really committed to it. And he was just so excited to take it over. And it's like he has all of the episodes uploaded with full track listings and timestamps, and like really gets into it. So maybe now that he has a face for radio, he might be more receptive to.
Right. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned, this being year 3 and kind of like how it comes together. Is that just, I know that Horton has mentioned before that you guys were kind of the factor of help pushing that festival to happen. So was it entirely like you guys and Horton together saying we need to develop a festival in Tulsa that
Yeah,
brings in old
he
school
had the
metal and new
idea, and
metal?
yeah, he had the idea and took off running with it, and it's really just a Horton thing. I know that Christian from Night Cobra and Necrofire, he runs Hell's Heroes in Houston, and he's been a good contact for Horton, helping him figure out how to do his own thing up here. And then I know Jarvis from Night Demon and Trevor from Haunt have been really good contacts for Horton. Just what bands will be available, and Horton will call me and like bounce some ideas off of me, or be like, we can only get this band if they're traveling with this band, but I don't know where to put this band because of the bill. And it's just like, have them do an after party at Hunt Club. He's like, this is why I call you Mitchell. So, but it's really a Horton thing. Like he's put together something incredible and nearly completely by himself. So
Kind of a dumb question, but because we know the answer, I would think. But like, what does this event mean to you personally? Like being able to have, a lot of music that, you're a fan of these bands that didn't get, as much exposure as they should have, from the 80s, and then plus bands that are your peers now, like in
yeah.
all of it happening right here in Tulsa.
Oh, it's unreal. It's it was totally crazy. Like I said, traveling in that punk band all throughout my 20s, we kept getting more and more metallic and I've always cast a wide net on my listening, but I think it's whenever I read my first interview with Mark the Shark from Manila Road in like my early 20s, and I was just like, man, I'm devoting my life to this. Just heavy metal is just an art, a culture, and everything, and I'm a metalhead above all. And that's well before I even thought I had the chops to approach and try to play heavy metal. I had just been a punk rocker. And so throughout all my 20s, just started traveling to lots of metal fests, been to, Norway, Ireland, all over the US. And just meeting people and making all these connections in the, international metal underground and like these friends that go to the same fests, all these bands that I love. And so, A, it is wild for me that we made Blind Oath and people really like it. That we're getting invited to fests now. We're going to be playing Stormbringer Fest in Massachusetts in June. So
Wow.
that's going to be awesome. We played Blades of Steel in Madison last August, September. And so that's the A and B of it, as my mind's blown. And then the C is that we built this thing in Tulsa. And it's last year, we got to share a bill with Artillery. That's insane. By
Yeah.
Inheritance is easily one of my favorite albums ever. I never thought that I would get to see them in the States, let alone play with them. And then we got to play with and see Liege Lord at that Madison Blades of Steel, but now we're hosting him in my hometown. And it's a dream come true. And it feels like this is kind of like my life's work uh, of just supporting traveling for heavy metal, building these connections and stuff. And it's just like, and now Horton's made this, you know, this beautiful thing, and we get to host bands. It's awesome. And there's a band from Canada, Tower Hill, that's playing 2 Minutes to Tulsa, and they're just unreal. I'm obsessed with their album Deathstalker, and they hit us up, and they're just like, "Hey, would you guys want to go and play a show in Texas that Sunday of 2 Minutes to Tulsa?" And so we're doing our micro mini tour because we're doing 3 cities in 2 days. We're doing 2 Minutes to Tulsa on Friday, Bang Over Brunch, which is free at Fassler on Sunday, the 30th. And then after we do Bang Over Brunch, we're getting in the van and we're driving down to Dallas to play with them again. And so it's awesome, and we're bringing Hitten from Spain, which they're fantastic. And so, yeah, just to have to make Tulsa a place that even the fans, not just the bands, we are getting international travelers coming to Tulsa. And so, I write for the Pickup, I wrote for Tulsa Voice, and I wrote for This Land a lot back in the day. I've been a journalist forever, and I've always been like a Tulsa booster, and really love the rich lore, culture, and history of our city. And I love to share it with people. And so now I'm getting to do this with, like hair metal, like cock rock band from Spain, and some power metal dudes from Canada. And we had Sweden's Screamer last year and showing them around.
Yeah,
So it's beautiful, man. Like, it's really awesome.
absolutely. Is there like one specific band you're looking forward to the most this year? Is there anyone you hadn't seen yet live?
Um, Definitely Tower Hill. That's going to be awesome. I'm really stoked on Sacred Right. Um, that's wild that Horton got them back together. And I hadn't heard them until Horton told me about them. And I'm like, their album is like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, real hidden gem stuff for me. Hitting, like I was saying, from Spain. To finally host Midnight, we're going to be giving them a little bit of rehearsal space ahead of the fest whenever they get into town. That's cool. Midnight's one of my favorite bands ever. Mm, hosting them, but man, Liege Lord, like I said, I saw him in Madison. But Master Control is like an American U.S. power metal classic. It's just unreal. It's like if you ever wanted to hear if Iron Maiden was a thrash band, that's what it is.
Okay.
Uh, so unreal. So I I know Liege Lord is going to blow minds. When we saw him in Madison, it was just like in Mega Colossus. Mega Colossus. I don't know if you've heard them, but just fantastic American like modern like power metal. And whenever I say power metal, and I'm like talking about like U.S. power metal, that's like before power metal was like a 4 letter word to some people.
Right.
Before like the dudes in stockings and lederhosen got a hold of it, all
Yeah.
the dweebs. It's just
Right.
U.S. power metal is like Jag Panzer and Liege Lord, take it from the streets and put it into the sheets. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like leave your wizards alone, whatever. We're rocking over here. And so Mega Colossus is a lot like that. And their drummer Doza, I got to share an Airbnb with him at the last Hell's Heroes, and he's just such an awesome, nice guy. I'm just really looking forward to holding him in Tulsa. and Mark Bryety from Jag Panzer is a big supporter of the arts. Jag Panzer is considered kind of the Beatles of U.S. power metal.
Yeah.
Uh, Ample Destruction is just a landmark in the genre. And Mark loves Blind Oath. He was at Blades of Steel in Madison. We hung out with him the whole time. And then now he's like, I'm coming to Tulsa. And they played 2 Minutes to Tulsa last year. And so, yeah, band I'm most excited to see is not even playing. It's just hanging out with Mark Bryany because what a
Right.
sweetheart. And we might go to the aquarium and look at the sharks together.
Hell yeah. About a year ago or so, Jason Wood, who used to do the podcast with me,
Yeah,
sent me a link to Hitton. He's like, you got to check these guys out. So I was super
yeah,
pumped to see them on the lineup. Pretty excited. I love all sorts of metal, but my roots has always been that melodic glam kind of feel.
yeah,
So
yeah. Oh man, I love
yeah.
them. Their new album, While Passion Lasts, is so good. Me and Miller always like say then the song. He's like, "Don't worry, Mama, it's only a phase." That's made it into the Blind Oath head canon. It gets said a lot in the tour band for various reasons.
Yeah.
Don't worry,
Well,
Mama, it's only Bucky's.
well, another band that's played 2 minutes in the past is Night Demon. You mentioned working with Armand.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
he's been on this podcast several times. Great dude, amazing guitarist. What was the process like working with him when you guys went out to work on the album,
oh
and
man,
everything? Like, how did that process go for you? And
just incredible. Our drummer couldn't make it to Blades of Steel in Madison, so Armo was actually the drummer for our setup there. We
oh,
only had
really?
one day to rehearse. Yeah, Armo was originally a Night Demon as the drummer before he took over guitar.
Okay.
So whenever he recorded us out in Ventura, he was showing us and was like, "Damn, I didn't know you drum." He's just like, "Yeah." So if Stu can't ever make it, he's just like, "I wouldn't mind getting back on the throne." So I was like, "Were you serious about that?" Because Stu can't make blades, and he's like, "Oh yeah, get me a set list." He killed it.
Wow.
But he is so pro, and I love that it's we've worked with people in the past that will make us play to a click. And I don't like that. It feels like more stifles and stuff. And I was just like, are we gonna be playing to a click on every track? And he's just like, no, baby, down and dirty. We're doing it live. And so the full band would record live, and that's how we got like the intensity and kind of the spontaneity of it. Something I really love. Beatles didn't record to a click, so come on. And that you get that kind of like sense of urgency and like the real push and pull of like the tempos. It's flexible and not polished. So I love that. We tracked live and then we overdubbed guitar solos, leads. Most of the solos you hear on that record, I'm more of the rhythm guy. If you hear like a bluesy, sort of soulful, little jazzy solo every now and then, that's me. But Dr. Rob, our lead guitarist, is just a monster. So all the warp speed, xenomorph blood spilling out on the whammy bar kind of stuff that you hear, that's Dr. Rob. And he nearly one took every single solo that you hear on that record. It's
Wow.
just he would nail it. And then Armo is just like, uh, yep, that's the one to me. And Rob's like, I don't know what I would change with it. I'm like, okay, it's total pro. And so it was really awesome. And then the other part of the process that was so cool is above his mixing board, whenever we were doing guitar overdubs, he has a monitor, and it was always on mute, but he was playing Steven Seagal movies the entire time. Anytime between a take, if Steven Seagal was actually talking, and I'm saying like he's playing like the worst like direct to DVD movies, he'd be like, "Oh, sorry, Rob, our boy's talking." And he'd unmute it, and we'd have to watch Steven Seagal say whatever horse shit came out of his mouth.
Wow.
So it was very Steven Seagal filled time in Ventura, and just one of the best times we've ever had as a band.
Never inspired you to throw in a couple like voice clips from a Seagal movie in one of those songs?
No, he might not be the best dude.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah, we're getting out on the road. We're going up to Stormbringer Fest in Massachusetts in June, in Worcester, Mass, and we're going to do Indianapolis, Cleveland, just be at the fest, and then we're going to hit Youngstown and Columbia, Missouri on the way back. We have
Nice.
great friends in Columbia, Missouri. Any of your listeners are touring bands and they've never routed a tour through Columbia, definitely. That is a college town that loves music, and they've just spiritually tied to them from my Lizard Police days. And everybody in Columbia that were young punk rockers got even more and more metal as I got more metal. So now it's a metal band.
Is any other band doing those shows with you, or is it going to be all like local to those areas?
Uh, Local to the areas, but in Indy, we're playing with Throne of Iron, which I don't know if you've heard them, but excellent U.S. power metal band. That's really like the themes are a lot about like tabletop gaming a lot. But Throne of Iron's excellent. They just dropped a new record, and we're really stoked to play with them. Um, Dave from Destructor is helping us with the Cleveland show. We're still staffing that one out. Destructor unfortunately can't play, but Dave's become a great friend. And I think Black Cudgel's playing with us. So yeah, we are trying to link up with Lady Beast and do a couple dates, but I think now what we're hoping to do is to debut Righteous Hunt at Stormbringer with Deb from Lady Beast. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can make some magic happen at 2 Minutes of Tulsa because Stacy and Amy will be here, so you never know.
Yeah.
That's our thing. It's just like we did it with 4 guest vocalists. So it's like if the stars ever align and even one of them is in the same room with us, we're like, gotta do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that kind of makes it, a unique concept as well, too, because, throughout the coming years, you could do a live performance with one here,
Oh
and
yeah,
maybe two
totally.
here, like you said, at 2 minutes. So,
Yeah, 100%.
shifting, gears just a little bit off your music, but still talking about music for the last few years, you've been teaching a music related course. Like, what's that all about?
Oh yeah. It's it's at Tulsa School of Arts and Sciences. They're an excellent charter school here in Tulsa. It's like Never Land for weird kids
Yeah.
school. And yeah, I think we just always called it rock class. We never had an official name. But what it is, I'm just now, I was teaching every day after school for a long time. And then during one school year, every day before school, which was brutal because I'm a live musician and spent a lot of time at bars after hours. And, but now I'm just volunteering 2 days a week after school with a really dedicated group. But in the height of it, whenever it was actually a 4 credit class, now it's a after school club. Uh, I had like 35 students, and we would meet every morning in one room, and I'd show them a music video of the day, and then we would break, and we had all these different rehearsal rooms. And like Tulsa, whenever I posted about it, we had so much gear donated, and we just had more students and more gear than we even had space at the school. So I was having to teach kids and like had to use 2 different locker rooms that were also bathrooms. So you have kids learning like Weezer and Green Day songs in these bathrooms, and I'm having to run from the locker rooms on the basement level all the way up to the third floor computer lab because it was like any teacher that was cool enough to let us, use the space. And so it was really just teaching beginning instrumentation. And I always told them it was a social literacy class under the guise of music class because I just teach them how to work together and how to be humans. That's just like you might have a little bit more skill than your new bass player, but I've, taught him Seven Nation Army. Seven Nation Army is the new smoke on the water for first guitar riffs.
Yeah.
Every goddamn kid wants to know how to play Seven Nation Army, uh, which isn't my favorite trend, but it is what it is.
Right.
And but it's like I've maybe taught a kid how to single string Seven Nation Army, but their guitarist like teaching them heavy lifting, how to help out your bandmates, get them up to your speed and stuff like that. So it's really fun. And now I just have this group of like very dedicated young musicians that honestly know a lot more about music than me. I never pretended to be like a music teacher. I can really teach beginning instrument on most things, but there's a point whenever their knowledge will exceed me. I made all of my friends by pretending to play guitar for 2 decades. It's like I'm a drummer by trade. I don't really know what I'm doing on guitar. Just Dr. Rob tolerates me because I write the stuff. But but yeah, and so now these kids they just rip, and I'm really there just to make sure that they stay on task and teaching them now like they're all excellent players. Well, it'll be like, you guys think you'd have a lot more fun if you were all playing in the same key and same time right now? It's just because you walk in and they're all playing something else. Sounds like Captain Beefheart. And just to keep them on the same page, keep them motivated, and help them work together to learn songs. And as of now, they've got Holy Divers, Seek and Destroy, Electric Funeral. Um, we're not going to take it. And it's also perfect for me that these kids now are all metalheads. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, And I'll threaten them. I'll threaten them, guys. Like, we have a concert coming up, and it's just like, if you guys do not learn Seek and Destroy, I'm going to make you play Seven Nation Army. And they're like, no. Seven, Seven Nation Army is always the looming hand of doom.
Yeah. So you said they have a concert coming up. Is it like a group or is it several
Yeah.
kids that like playing like a bunch of guitarists? Are we talking like
Oh, it's a band.
you're
Yeah,
working
it's
with one
drums.
single band basically?
Yeah, drums, bass, and
Oh,
two
okay.
guitarists. And these kids do dual leads. Like,
Okay.
they kill it. And the show will be April 25th at Spotlight Theater in Tulsa. My student band is opening, and then me and my girlfriend do stand-up comedy. So with Evan Hughes and a couple other comics, every comic's going to do like a 3 minute set, and then my live karaoke band is going to play a song that they picked for us that we can sing over. We're doing this, and it's all to fundraise for Girls Rock Camp that's happening this summer in Tulsa.
Okay.
The Girls Rock Camp is going to be a week-long thing where girls can learn how to play instruments, form their own little bands. Um, there'll be workshops over flyering, workshops over designing merch and getting it printed. And so,
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's Chris Rose and Dave Dean. They're awesome people locally, and they have a program similar to mine at Street School, I believe. So, anyways, yeah, so it's going to be a comedy live band karaoke fundraiser for Girls Rock Camp.
Right on. Wrapping it up, like looking through the rest of the year, you mentioned Blind Oath has got this tour wrapped around, your festival appearances and everything you got coming up through June. Is there anything else we can look forward to throughout the rest of the year?
Uh, April or August 23rd, we're going to be playing a show in Springfield with Transylvania. If you're over in that area. Oh, May 1st in Tulsa at Whittier Bar, Entranced.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic California band, just kill it. And and with their last album, they're really, really like honing and celebrating their Latino roots. It's like super cool. And whenever I saw them at House Heroes last year, it was whenever James Luna, the singer, went and did a costume change, which was so sick. Whenever he came out in this awesome sequin kind of, I don't know, like a sequin Beastmaster shawl kind of looking thing or whatever. It's like that's when it got real and everything was in Espanol, like really pumped it up. So they are just one of our favorite bands and favorite people, but we're playing with them at May 1st at Whittier. Then I think we just need to start writing all that music I promised you that we're trying to make.
Yeah.
Get some new stuff out there.
Yeah.
And King Cabbage Brass Band. King Cabbage Brass Band are fantastic. They just played the horn section at all these Zach Bryan concerts, BOK, and he flew them to New York for a show. But we are going to be doing a collaborative song with them. We have this super epic doom metal track that is just going to have
Oh wow.
serious foreboding horns on it. Yeah. So that's the next piece of music we're cooking up. But I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Excited to
I
hear
think,
that. I'm a big fan. I've seen them live a couple times. They're great. So
oh
it'd be
yeah,
cool to
they're
hear that
unreal.
collaboration.
Oh yeah, and Arby, their saxophone player, he's a really great buddy, and he's just like, I just want to. He's like, it's a dream to do a sax solo on a heavy metal track. I was
Yeah.
just like, absolutely, let's do it. And he's just like, I'm gonna get real weird with it, so can't wait.
Hell yeah. Right on, man. Well, I'm glad we finally made this happen after all these
Yes,
years.
sir.
Looking forward to 2 minutes to Tulsa, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, you got it. Thanks so much, dog.
There you go. Mitchell Gilliam of Blind Oath. A huge thank you to Mitchell for taking some time out there to hit me up on Zoom so we could have a chat there about what's going on with Blind Oath. And of course, 2 minutes to Tulsa, which, as you've heard many times throughout this episode, is coming up this weekend. Friday and Saturday, March 29th and 30th, or excuse me, 28th and 29th at the Vanguard in Tulsa, Oklahoma, downtown Tulsa. The VanguardTulsa.com is where you can get tickets. Do it now, and we'll see you out there Friday and Saturday. All that being said, like I said, a massive thank you to Mitchell. Glad we finally made this happen. I was thinking beforehand, I didn't bring it up, but I know that at one point I believe Mitchell was booking or kind of being a show promoter, booking some shows. Possibly he still does that. I should have asked. But I remember several years ago, man, this was probably pre-pandemic, probably 2018 or 19, the band Bible of the Devil was on this podcast. Jason and I interviewed him when they played the Mercury Lounge in Tulsa. And I'm pretty positive that Mitchell booked that show. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had, booked a couple other shows of bands that we interviewed, or at least shows that we were just attending in that time period. There you go, just random stuff I was thinking about. If this is your first time listening, or you haven't listened that much, as you noticed there in the episode title, and like I mentioned earlier, nearly 10 years, you've got 415 episodes previous to this that you can check out. Haunt, who is playing 2 Minutes to Tulsa. Trevor Williams Church from Haunt has been on here twice. Night Demon has played 2 Minutes to Tulsa in the past. And band members of Night Demon have been on 4 times now, maybe 5. Long time friends of the podcast. Always a great interview between any of those guys in that band. And like we talked about there, the guitarist for Night Demon is also does production. And Blind Oath, flew out to California when they were working on the album, and then flew him into Tulsa, like you said, for, the track they've got out right now, Righteous Hunt. I don't believe anyone else that has played 2 Minutes to Tulsa has been on, unless I'm just drawing a blank from the last couple years. I'm sure there's something, but tons of great bands in the thrash and heavy metal world, like Alex Skolnick of Testament, David Ellefson, formerly of Megadeth, has been on a couple of times. Other former members of Megadeth, like James Lomenzo, Chris Broderick, have been on in the past. Members of Death Angel, Toxic Holocaust, Dark Tranquility, Anvil, The Black Dahlia Murder, Saxon, Twisted Sister, Queensryche, Tesla, LA Guns, all that great 90s heavy metal, like Typo Negative, White Zombie, Prong, Helmet, Corrosion and Conformity, Seven Dust. Members of all those bands, Clutch, have been on here multiple times. Members of Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard and Whitesnake and Motley Crue and Bon Jovi, if you go that route. It goes all over the place. I just love rock and roll, my friends, if you haven't figured that out. Coming up on 10 years, and like I said earlier, Brian Fair of Shadows Fall will be making his return to the podcast pretty soon. Pretty interesting note about that is that he appeared right at the 5-year mark in May of 2020, and then he's now appearing for the second time April of 2025. So almost got him, at that exact 5-year and that exact 10-year point, but close enough. Also coming up will be the guitarist. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I made a thing. I'm going to test a theory, okay? I've made a thing throughout the years about not mentioning upcoming guests if the episode hasn't been recorded, if it's only been, confirmed. Because in the past I've said so-and-so's coming up, and then the interview falls through for some reason or another, either on their end or my end. Then I don't bring it up again. And then 2 months later, someone's like, I thought you said so-and-so was going to be on the podcast. What's up with that? And then, so rather than go through all that, I just wait until it's happened to announce it. However, this one is timely in the sense that it relates in the genres of metal that 2 Minutes to Tulsa and that we've been talking about a lot. Like if this band was to play 2 Minutes to Tulsa, it would make not just sense, it would make perfect sense. I believe they just played Hell's Heroes this past weekend. But anyway, the point is, Nige Rocket, the original guitarist and founding member of the band Onslaught, will be on this podcast soon. I'm saying that with authority, just so this will happen. This interview is scheduled to be recorded. So if you're a fan of thrash, which I'm guessing you are. If you listen to all of this and you're still listening, be on the lookout for this episode with Nige Rocket from Onslaught. Great stuff, because just kind of going on a mini tangent here. Onslaught is one of those bands that I never really dug into at all. I knew the name. I would see the name in magazines. I would still see it to this day, and it's just one of those bands that just kind of slipped by me and I never really looked into. I started doing that recently and found out that these guys have some killer heavy metal. So be on the lookout for their new double album, which is supposed to be out, I believe, in May. But all right, back to the podcast itself, which, like I said, if this is your first time listening, you've got all those episodes you can check out. thethunderunderground.com. You can listen directly there. You can also listen pretty much anywhere podcasts are heard. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, SoundCloud, all that stuff. You can follow us on all the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, TikTok, and YouTube. I started putting out tons of content over the past month or so as far as short videos go. Some of them are goofy, but a lot of them are just informative, facts or interesting things about heavy metal or some random news. So that kind of stuff. So check out all the socials and give us a follow on all those. All right. I'm going to quit rambling and say once again a huge thank you to DEB Concerts, Rocklahoma Bitches, Sunset Tattoo, and of course, Mitchell Gilliam. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.